Hello and welcome to our course on PRINCE2. Let's take a look at what we're going to cover in this first introductory section. First of all, I'm going to answer the question, what is PRINCE2? Then we're going to talk a little about the PRINCE2 manual. And I'm going to explain some of the major differences between business as usual and projects. Then we're going to look at a couple of very important definitions. First of all, what is a project? And secondly, what is project management? Then I'm going to explain what we mean by a project management method and why we need project management methods. And finally in this section, why we have and use PRINCE2. Let me start by explaining what PRINCE2 is. It's what's called a project management method. And PRINCE actually stands for Projects in Controlled Environments. It's an acronym, and you should always write PRINCE in uppercase characters to remind yourself that it is Projects in Controlled Environments rather than a PRINCE. PRINCE2 is the second major version of the PRINCE method. And PRINCE2 itself was updated in 2009, and this course is based on the latest 2009 version of PRINCE2. PRINCE and PRINCE2 originated in the UK but are now used worldwide. Now, something that you're definitely going to need in order to follow this course is a copy of the PRINCE2 manual. The manual for this course is called Managing Successful Projects with PRINCE2, and you must have access to a copy of the manual to follow this course. The manual contains all of the information that you need. It's meant both for beginners and for experienced project managers, and as you'll see as we go through the course, it contains a lot of information. I'll be referring to this manual very often during the course, and you need to become very familiar with its contents. So even if you can't always remember facts in the manual, you need to remember where to find them. And what some people do is put sticky tabs on the edges of the pages of the manual to help them to find things more easily. So for example, if you want to find out something about risk in PRINCE2, you maybe got a little sticky tab on the edge of the page where the section on risk begins. Now, you may well have heard the expression business as usual or BAU. And the first thing that I want to do is to put business balance into context. Most organizations have to balance these competing requirements. They need to maintain current operations, which means things like staying profitable, providing service of a high quality, maintaining strong relationships with their customers, etc., primarily so that the people who work in the business can be paid. And then they also need to transform their business operations at the same time. Now, this transformation may take many forms and may be for many reasons. For example, there may be a regulatory or legal change that a company needs to make, or they may need to do something like move their offices, perhaps go to a larger factory, or to implement new technology, some kind of new computer system. Now, it's achieving that balance that is the challenge for many companies. And in our modern world, as change is such a prominent part of our lives now, change seems to happen more and more rapidly, and it's becoming even more important to balance business as usual and change. And the way that we implement change is to use projects. So what do we mean by a project? A project is a temporary organization that is created for the purpose of delivering one or more business products according to an agreed business case. Now, this is an essential definition. You need to remember the definition of project. Let's look now in a little bit more detail at the difference between BAU and projects. Now, as I said just now, projects are used to introduce change. BAU is about keeping the current production line running, doing our usual business. Projects are about change. Projects are temporary. You certainly hope, I'm sure, that your business as usual isn't temporary and it will go on for as long as possible. But a project will always have a start date and an end date. Projects are also cross-functional. What do we mean by cross-functional? Well, they're often within an organization, but they will use people with different skills, perhaps from different departments, and they'll work together without the normal functional or organizational boundaries. Within a project environment, somebody's manager in that project may be a very different person to their manager on a day-to-day basis when they're doing their normal job. Also, projects are cross-functional between organisations. So you may work on a project with somebody who doesn't even work in the same company as you, perhaps a supplier company, or a company for whom you're doing the project, for whom you're producing whatever the project produces. The next key difference is that every project is unique. Projects may share some characteristics, but there's always something different. You're doing a project for a different customer, or in a different place, or perhaps with a different team of people, with a different structure to the team. And finally, projects involve risk and uncertainty. Now, you may argue that your business as usual involves risk and uncertainty, but risk and uncertainty are a normal part, a planned part, if you like, of a project. Whereas in business as usual, you don't like too much risk, you don't like uncertainty. You want your production line to work like clockwork. Now, these key differences, it's also important to remember. Now we come to another important definition. What is project management? I'm afraid this is quite a long definition, but a very important one. Project management is the planning, delegating, monitoring and control of all aspects of the project and the motivation of those involved to achieve the project objectives within the expected performance targets for time, cost, quality, scope, benefits and risk. Now that list of 6 things at the end, time, cost, quality, scope, benefits, risk, is also very important. So I've talked about project and I've talked about project management. What about project management method? Now if you say you had a project to build a house, the work on the house would involve specialists, people like bricklayers and roofers and glaziers. If you're building a bridge, engineers, writing some computer software, programmers, perhaps arranging a big party, a wedding event for instance, you'd have caterers. Now the people that do the work are what we refer to as the specialists. The purpose of project management is to keep control over this specialist work. And given all the different types of project that can happen, and given all the ways that you could go about managing projects, particularly in the light of all these different types of projects, the idea of a project management method is to implement a consistent, well-proven and secure approach to project management, because this can reduce risk and increase the chance of success. We can learn from the way that other people have successfully managed projects and use some aspects of how they've gone about their project management to help us be more successful. Now, one project management method is PRINCE2. So what's special about PRINCE2? Why do so many people use PRINCE2? These are some of its main advantages. It is a non-proprietary method. It's not provided by or associated with a particular company. It was actually created by the UK government. It's administered by a couple of other companies now. But it is in the public domain. Anybody can use PRINCE2. You can also apply it to any type of project. It's a generic method. And PRINCE2 separates the management from the specialist work. It draws a distinct line between the works that the builders and the caterers do and the people who are managing projects. And the PRINCE2 aspects of project work can happen alongside the specialist aspects. So whatever the nature of the project, The specialist work and the management work will sit very comfortably together with each other. And using a generic method such as PRINCE2 enables an organisation to improve their capability to deal with change, and of course change is what projects are all about. So finally, let's just review what we've covered in this first introductory section. First of all, I've told you what PRINCE2 is and a little bit about its background, and I've explained the importance of the PRINCE2 manual. I've mentioned some of the key aspects of business as usual versus projects, and we've looked at two very important definitions: what is a project and what is project management. I've explained what we mean by a project management method and why we have project management methods, and also why PRINCE2 is a particularly successful and useful project management method. That's the end of part 1 of the introduction.